I want to talk briefly about the downer, or the kind of the knot that I feel around kind of the coming together and juxtaposition of some of Lazaris' statements and reality as I experience it. The first thing in a very broad context is I've been aware of feeling more pain than well-being, ever since I can remember, and that's gone up and down at times, but over a lifetime, it's probably 80% pain in one form, pain, fear of pain, anxiety about fear of pain, shame, that kind of thing, to, joy, pleasure, and well-being, which, in some degree has always been there as well. Starting to feel suicidal at age 14, and then periodically noticing, like, gee, I've tried everything that I can, and I'm in more pain than well-being. And at some point, after achieving thousands of goals and having a pretty idyllic outer reality, like I'm not sure how my house could be any better. I certainly don't want a new car. I eat as well as I can imagine anyone in the world eating. I do an idyllic job, have a lot of free time. So when I was young, there was this idea of, like, well, I'm in pain now, but when I build my house, or when I do this, or when I do that, then I will, be successful and not in pain. And that's never happened. What's happened is, as I've reached all these milestones, is it sunk in that, I've tried $150,000 in therapy, and I've, attended dozens of Lazaris workshops, and I've worked with thousands of hours of Lazaris in meditation and this and that, and tried this and lived at Findhorn and done a whole host of things. And there's not that much new, at least in the outer sense, to say, like, it's not like I'm living in a dictatorship country. The U.S. is abysmal in certain ways, but it's better than most in the broader context. And so and I've traveled the world and done these, done 80% of the things on my bucket list, and purchased pretty much, anything I can think of, and it's like that doesn't deal with some of the issues. And then on the inner side, working over and over again with shame, or with fear, or with pain, or etc. And it lifts off, particularly after a while. When I did the pain tape again recently, there was a big lift. But it doesn't lift off all the way. It's like this relief, and then there's this readjustment, perhaps. I don't know if it's hedonic adaptation or whatever, but it's like it doesn't lift off fully. And the heaviness remains. So in that context, Lazaris has said, beyond gods, that there will never be a presence, bigger than Lazaris, more at such high levels. So, that's one thing. So Lazaris is off on his way, soon. So it's all downhill from here. This is it. Is one way of, digesting that. Another thing is, the most monumental decade in the history of humankind already gone. The New Age is here. And there's there's numerous areas of reality that are getting worse. Loneliness in the United States is at all-time highs and is on a steady climb. Suicides have overtaken car deaths for kind of 50-year-old white Americans, men. And mental and emotional diseases, depression, things like that seem to be on the rise, in children. And this, I guess the issue that I have, which is less, like Head Lazaris said, there's tons more we could do, and there's tons more that's going to happen. And other, people that are, better teachers than we are, etc., and are going to come and, and things will continue to get better. And this will be a very tiny beginning of a new age, and maybe in another 20 years. Then there's something to kind of look towards. But what, the picture that Lazaris has painted, and there's also a little bit of schizophrenia, because on the one hand, you create your own reality, your beliefs. If it didn't happen, you didn't want it. Meaning if you wanted it, it would be there. But then this is going to be the way it is. There's obviously a little bit of a contradiction in the sense of saying you create your own reality, but you have decided for all time that you don't want a higher being than we are. Seems a bit presumptuous to know what so-and-so's future self will be all over the planet, to know that nobody would ever want a higher being than Lazaris or a similar being. This is the only time someone will ever touch this from this level. So it's like, well, where's the logic for that? Where's the freedom in that? So that, there's a bit of schizophrenia in that mixed message. But it's also, and I remember, around the year 2000 and stuff, noticing this as well, like, this wasn't what I had in mind when looking forward to the new age. Heightened government surveillance, Trump, that's not what I had in mind. And so then I think, well, Lazaris didn't spell out exactly what the new age is going to look like. But it sounded like it was a good thing. And if it's this terrible in terms of all this stuff, which, doesn't feel particularly great, what's the big deal about it? I mean, who cares about the most monumental decade if it has just as much pain as the last decade? Who cares about the new age if it's as painful as the last age? So that's, I think, part of the disconnect is why make all the fuss about this? Because if me doing the meditations in my teens and looking forward to the new age saw me here, I wouldn't be terribly excited, like, oh, I can't wait to be that. And I don't, when I do my inner child meditation, I can certainly enjoy loving and bringing that child into a better reality than the past memories, etc. But I don't feel like for all that I experienced that I would say, just wait and see how great it'll be when you're 44. I would, in all candor, tell my teenager, it's don't get your hopes up about the New Age. It doesn't feel particularly new to me. And you can and will do a lot of things. You'll travel around the world. You'll do your bucket list. You'll meet amazing, beautiful women. You'll achieve thousands of goals. You'll build houses. You'll do this. You'll do this. You'll do all that. You'll be debt-free. You'll be making lots of money. But it won't feel incredibly wonderful. Your body will ache and feel exhausted at times. There will be kind of uncertainty and anxiety. There'll be a certain amount of lethargy, like what's left to do after the diet and the this and the this and this. Like, what do we do next? And that'll be a little bit stressful. And you may have more fun imagining all of this than actually living it. And I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'm sure I'll keep developing in a variety of different ways, but I'm not sure that that's going to feel, sustainably better, because trauma is going to play a big role in different things, and a lot of that stuff seems somewhat stuck in the body, and that's not really something I wish for you to grow up into, but that's what I'm experiencing. And tonight, another example. I'm off to Thailand for a month tomorrow with my wife, and my wife is incredible. Thailand is my favorite country. I feel anxious, a little sad, a certain sense of anxiety and separation, some grief, all of which I don't fully understand, and my body feels achy and tired. And that's, in some ways, in more pain or more stuff than it was 15 years ago. And I'm not sure what I can do to shift that, and the idea that kind of Lazaris has come and gone, the New Age is here, the most monumental decade is over. It just seems like, well, is this it? And then there are these lingering things, like all these many paradoxes of both Seth and Lazaris, saying things like your beliefs create your reality, but then emphasizing these little things, do this, this, but your beliefs create your reality, but do this and this and this, and this is going to happen and this isn't going to happen, and this is the way this is, and that's just the way it is, but you create your own reality with your beliefs. But don't bother believing anything different, like why not believe that a more amazing teacher will occur next year? Well, don't bother with that, because they never will. That for the rest of mankind, we're the highest resonance, and that's it. And we're not going to answer your questions and stuff because we don't want to. And that's the best that the highest beings can do. It's not. It's not incredibly uplifting, and so that's. That's just what it is. And so, to look to something more uplifting, I don't then turn towards Lazaris's words so much as to what I can create. And I would say there's 30% of the time, or more accurately, 30% of me is in a pretty high resonance, moving, growing, shifting every day, achieving goals every day, happy about this, happy about that. And so 30% of me, I think will continue to do that. But that joy and happiness, I think comes from, just playing with my wife, playing with my dog, achieving little goals and having things flow and work out and making this happen and that happen. But there's this gap between what I thought these things would mean or should mean or seem to line up with those words and what I'm actually experiencing.